From recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex with your host Steve Urban comes the Riderflex Nation podcast, a show featuring entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. If you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes. All right, on today's Riderflex podcast, we have Finn Kelly, the founder of Wealth Enhancers, also the president of the Colorado chapter of EO, or Entrepreneurs Organization. He's also a retreat facilities coach and a professional speaker. Finn, my pleasure. Thanks so much for being on.
It's a pleasure to be here, Steve.
So give us a little personal background. I mean, people can learn all about you already kind of online if they do their own, study, but in your own words, just tell us about yourself, early life, some family stuff, things like that.
For sure. So originally from Australia, now live in Boulder, Colorado. And the reason why I moved to Colorado 4 years ago is just love of skiing. It's my favorite thing on earth. And I moved to Beaver Creek and lived there for 3 years. And it was great, but eventually I needed community again. So I moved to Boulder, and also with my role as president of EO, I just needed to be closer. So
Gotcha.
That's how I ended up in Colorado.
Okay.
Grew up on a farm in Tasmania, which is a small little state, the bottom of Australia, which is where the Tasmanian devil is
I
from.
was just about to ask you.
Yeah, so
all right.
That's where we are. And it was an interesting childhood. Like I had many different lives all the time from a young age. So I was sort of like the academic person, the sports person, fun partier, always really happy, but then had a challenging upbringing, which I've definitely healed now. And I'm very grateful for the experience there, and became a army officer. So I went to your equivalent of West Point and did
I
7
see.
years there. Yep.
I see. Now, is this so West Point? So how old were you when you went in?
So I finished school at 16 because I was finished school early.
Okay.
Because I skipped some grades. So I was the youngest person, actually. I was 17 years. I just turned 17.
Wow. All right. So you were a smart kid then, obviously. Good grades, did well in school.
Yeah, did well, but also got in a lot of trouble at school. I had the record for the most detentions at our private school. And so I was like, I played a lot of different roles.
Okay. All right. Now to get into this military school, it's tough to get in, like West Point, super hard to get in. Okay.
Super hard. And I wanted to be, the reason why I did it, and it's funny that drivers, was in the Tasmania, success was becoming a doctor. That's what, if you were a smart academic,
I see.
a lot of our parents were doctors, friends were doctors. That was where the money was. And it was there was a lot of pressure from a young age. Like that's what we were meant to do. And five of my best friends and we all got into medicine, but the whole time I was just like, I just knew this isn't what I wanted. Like I never really, I didn't like it that my parents, like my mum was a doctor and my uncle and grandfather and stuff. It would drive me insane. And but there was all this pressure and this obligation, and ego gets tied up in it. So I was like, there's got to be something else which could be potentially seem cooler than being a doctor. So then I can have the courage to get out of doing it. And I remember in year 12, it was year 11 actually, someone from the military academy came and spoke, and he was a helicopter pilot. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. So I actually applied for that as well, and had fun through it. Yeah, I applied, and in the same year I got accepted to both medicine and helicopter pilot training. And I ended up.
Let's see. I can make a lot more money over here being a doctor, but boy, this is a lot cooler over here in the helicopters,
definitely.
Right?
And it was a fascinating experience because I actually told my mum I didn't apply to be in medicine because I didn't even want the option, but I still did. I wanted to impress her, and then I got accepted, and I showed it to her, and I'll never forget that feeling. It was this like awe-loving feeling, and it was like the most proud she'd ever been of me.
Nice.
And it was nice, but then that was also obligation. So I ended up going, all right, I'll do medicine. But the funny thing is I accepted the military academy as well. And a week before, it was January 17th, and I remember it, January 17th, 2002. I was having a party with my other mates who were in medicine, doing medicine.
Mm.
And I just remember just going, it was the first moment where I really checked in my body and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I cannot do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them that night after drinking a lot of champagne, I was like, I'm off to the military. And a week later, I went to the military.
Now you enter the military as an officer at that point,
yeah,
right?
as an officer, you do intense training, and I did a degree, and it was like 4 years of officer training.
Okay.
So crazy that this is what scares me about this story is just because of the pressures of our childhood and the expectations and obligation, I was willing to go put myself in military and get trained and get to a place where you potentially go to overseas, risk your life to die, and also kill people, all because of just this obligation and expectation that is put on us as children.
Wow.
So I wanted to share that because that's something is not, people don't realize that all these things that we do to other people and what we project onto them, that can have like devastating effects on people.
Absolutely right. I'm glad you shared that. It's a good point. So you get in and you spend how many years in the service?
I did just under 7 years, and I never ended up going overseas. It was just the timing of different things. And it was an incredible experience. I got, like, at age 21, I was leading up to 100 soldiers, ranging from 17 to 55. And as an officer, you have a lot of responsibility. You can dictate. It's like, we're going outfield for the next month. Say goodbye to your families. So that was an incredible skill set. And at the same time, you're also speaking to the generals. So you sort of wedged in. You were like speaking to generals, and then the next second you're leading older soldiers. You learn a lot about how to manage different personas, how to communicate, get messages across. So that was really great. But it did not light me up. I was not happy there, and I didn't really believe in it.
But so you honed leadership skills, people skills, communication skills, how to deal with people at different levels, but you weren't satisfied. You didn't have a passion for it. It wasn't
not at all.
Wasn't really your purpose at that time, or your core purpose.
Definitely. And I remember my first experience of true passion and purpose was at pilot training. And there was guys there, like, I had just decided just that year, because it was going to be cooler, but there was people there who'd wanted this since they were 3 years old. Like, that was their vision, to be a pilot in the military. They'd absolutely wanted it. Every time they would get off a flight, they were just like buzzing. They're like, how good is this? And I'd get off the flight and I was like, because we were flying in really hot temperatures, I was like, oh, I just want to go lie down. Like, it was sort of cool, but I was like, that was pretty tedious.
Gotcha.
And they were loving it. And then, like, on a Saturday night, this was actually when I remember it. It was a Saturday night, and I was like, all right, I'll go out in the town, young person, go have fun, try to party, be with some ladies or something. And
now you're not married at the time or anything.
No, I was single at the time.
Okay.
And they're there playing remote control planes, having a few beers, laughing. I come back at 2:30 in the morning and they're still doing it. And I'm like, wow, these guys just absolutely love it. And there was a moment of, it was almost, even though back then I would have said, oh yeah, I thought I was cooler than them or anything, it transitioned. And I was like, I'm envious of this. Like, I admire them because they know what they want, and they're connected to their purpose and their passion. And I was like, all right, I need to start moving. I need to start changing mine. And that's when I left the military, and I started trading currency and equities for a little bit. And then I started my first business.
Okay, so that's what you did right there. If we can just dig in right there for a minute. When you first left the military, had you decided, I'm going to do this, or you didn't know for sure?
No, I didn't know. Actually, while I was in the military, a few things I've always done is, I'm a big believer in options. So having options and going, well, you never know what you want in life. Like, that's something we just don't know. But what are certain things which will help you, that in case you do find out what you want to do, you're already set up for a little bit. So you'll notice my education. I have a maths degree, a physics degree.
I saw that.
A teaching degree, a finance degree, now positive psychology, like leadership. Like, I just have different things, and I'll do broad base. So teacher was like, well, you can always get a job as a teacher. It's always a valuable skill set. Maths, similar thing.
Nice backup option, right?
Yeah. Yep. Finance, backup option. And I was always about backup options then.
Okay.
I don't believe in that now, but it was at that time I was like, what could I do? And I just left the military. It was actually probably the most courageous thing I've ever done. Not ever done, but it was. I've had some similar things recently where it connected me back to that moment. It was like, that was when I was willing to take a quantum leap. The whole idea of the quantum leap is you don't know where you're going, and you need to give up a belief set. So, and there's no words to explain it because you're going to a quantum leap. It's not a linear fashion. And in the military, because there's so much pressure, so much tied up. You think everyone's judging you. It's like, it's fear when you leave. It's an incredible organization.
Yeah.
And you think all your friends, because you chose military over being doctor, now you're a failure. There's all these things wrapped into it. I took the quantum leap and left, and just left and just went to see what happened. And it's funny, 6 months later, I met my now ex-wife, but my wife at that time, fell in love at the first moment. And 6 weeks later, we started our first business at age 24.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. And what was that?
So we started a private wealth management company. So it was basically like almost a fund, managing large amount of investment assets, but also doing goals-based and values-based advice. And we're looking after high net worth individuals, which was a fascinating time because here were two young kids looking after 55 to 60-year-olds money in the global crisis. Like it was the global crisis was at that exact point.
As soon as you were telling me that, I thought, well, now, all right, now if I was a rich guy at 55, why would I give you my money at that time? Why?
Yeah, and it wasn't under a big company. This was our own company, so it wasn't like a young kid at Wells Fargo or JP Morgan or something. And that's where the experience plays into it. So I basically saw all of these people as generals. They were my generals, and I had a role. So as a lieutenant in the army, you have you're basically the person who's directly in charge of the soldiers, the troops. So you actually get everything done, and you got to pitch to the general and say, this is my thought process. This is why I believe this is the right strategy.
I see.
So the preparation there was just perfect. And I also played off that I understood, like I have parents who are similar situations to you. I have this experience. I have a different thought process. So at that time, it was a crisis going on. And there was a lot of people who had no idea why they were losing money or what was going on. And I just said, it was all because you did this. Like, you can't blame anyone else. You didn't know your values. You didn't know what you're working towards, and you took undue risk. And that level of confidence, I believe, gave us a chance.
Do you remember getting those first few clients in that wealth management company when the first?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. The audacity of the two of us, it's really incredible. Like, it brings me back a lot of joy. Like, we threw an office opening party, and we had like 100 something people there, and it was great, and it was champagne. I was like, it was two of us, and she had one other staff member who was this 21-year-old girl. And we're like, the three of us were like, we dressed nice and we looked good. And I'm just like, why? How did we have the courage to do that? Like, whenever I try to get courage now, I go back into that moment.
And you probably weren't making a bunch of money at that time, right? You had
no, we were hustling. Yeah, it was good fun.
Hustle. The word hustle and audacity at that point right there. Those are two keywords, I think, that probably helped catapult you. That's great. Okay. So now I can only imagine you're having this first party and all these people are around and you're spending money on the party. So in your head, you're probably like, okay, this is going to cost us $1,000. And actually only 3 of these guys here are clients.
Yeah.
I love it.
But we actually did cool things. Like, we raised $10,000. I think that was like $7,000 for this asthma foundation. We got sponsorship. We did all these different things. Like, it's incredible. And that's something which I feel like, as you have more business success, it's almost like your ego doesn't allow you to do those things again. And it's a bit of a shame because there's so much greatness you can do by just having some initiative and just trying different things.
So early on even with all of the education that you had, whether it's, math or physics or psychology or whatever, you obviously were a salesman with great EQ and people skills, to be able to get all this done, right? You had to have those relationship skills to start to get this going. It's obvious, by
definitely.
the way.
Yeah, thank you. And it was a lot of care. That's what I always just focused on, was there was genuine care. Like
Mhm.
it makes me feel sad when people are in a situation where they're either like, I don't know what's going on, or
Mhm.
they're not taking responsibility for where they're at. So that was
Mhm.
a key driver of mine.
You've mentioned that a couple of times. I want to dig into that further when we start talking about wealth enhancers.
Hmm.
You've said, hey, you got to take responsibility for your own actions. Like you're in the spot you're in because of decisions you made, right? And it's true, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many people driving around blaming somebody else for their financial decisions. So, all right, so you had that first company, and then kind of, yeah, from there, walk us through what happened next.
We went on a whirlwind. Sarah and I, we've we did like 8 businesses together. We sold 2. We've had a couple of fails.
Mm,
We've still got 2. Yeah, it was an incredible journey where we basically went through the whole entrepreneurial journey in multiple times in a few loops.
mm,
So, and we created a lot of abundance, a lot of success, but then we also felt felt trapped to some unfortunate situations.
mm,
So
mm.
with
What was your scariest, darkest moment? You want to share that with everybody, or one of them? You probably had a
oh
few.
okay,
You probably had a few.
yeah, there's a few. They all layer it together at the same time, actually.
Mm,
So it would have been, we just sold a company, sold 2 actually, and
okay,
we're feeling great. We'd achieved all our vision. So when we first started, we're very intentional. We do visioning exercises, and we'll sell a company within 5 years, reach our financial goals, and then we'll go travel, go live overseas, and do all these different things.
great.
Now we actually did do all this, but unfortunately we started a few other things at the same time, which
Mm-hmm.
which distracted. We actually moved to Beaver Creek, Colorado, which was incredible. So we achieved this. We sold the company. We reached our financial metrics, but unfortunately, at the same time, we had started another couple of companies. One which was in an industry I didn't really enjoy. It was soulless. I wanted to disrupt an industry because I hated it. But then I realized I was in the industry that I hated. So it was quite interesting. And it was like accounting.
Now,
Uh,
at this moment right here, would you call yourself independently wealthy at that point, or
yeah, yeah, we were.
but
Um,
but still putting yourself at risk to where you could have lost a bunch of it? Is that?
yeah, unfortunately. And that's where we've got to be very careful about what we say yes to, because
Mm,
suddenly your life can just be taken off track. Even though you're so on track, you can
mm-hmm.
be suddenly pulled. And a few things occurred. So Sarah's dad died
Okay.
tragically. It
Mm,
was a tragic accident. We moved over to America. So we'd left family,
mm,
community, moved to a big mansion sort of in a ski resort, and which was incredible. We thought it was our dream, and it would have been, but there was just so much change. And then unfortunately, we ended up in a horrible legal battle over 2 things. One, her dad's estate, and with her business, his business partners. It was just really sad. And then straight away, over a business that we sold, and it was just a horrible
ooh.
experience. And
One,
that
two.
just sucked.
Mm,
It just sucked everything out of us and stopped us communicating.
mm.
And there was so much trauma and everything that played out, which resulted in our marriage breaking up. So
Ah,
that was the
that's a
period.
dark period. Yeah.
It was a really, really challenging, greatest awakening period, but a really challenging period.
No kids at that point.
No, no
Oh,
kids, just
okay,
businesses.
okay.
Yeah.
But so you go through that divorce, and then what? You're living in a little apartment up in Vale somewhere by yourself?
No, well, I actually was living in this giant house for a long time. So
Okay.
that was a dark time. Like I sat in this house
Uh,
just by
mm,
myself, and I was
mm,
like, all right, I'm going to do the work. I'm going
that's
to
tough.
I'm going to face everything that I believe could have contributed to breaking up this marriage. And
Mm-hmm.
that was things like I hadn't spoken to my father in 18 years.
Oh,
There was challenges with my mother, all these different experiences. And I just went, I'm going to focus on it, and I'm not going to distract myself. And that went, that's been a 2-year incredible journey now.
so
So just over 2 years.
this was only 2 years ago. Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
just over 2 years, 2 and a bit
Oh,
years.
okay. So then at that point, you're like, all right, I got to get myself together here. Professionally, emotionally. Now, wealth enhancers, was that already created at this time, or
Yeah,
this?
it
Okay,
was.
okay, okay.
It was, and that was the challenge because we Sarah
Yep.
and I had two companies
Yep.
still that we were working together, and
Yep.
so there was lots of challenges there, and we tried our best. Like that's something we've always done. Like Sarah's absolutely incredible. She's amazing. I'm like so grateful to have her in my life. But it's still, you go
Yep.
through a divorce, it's very, very challenging to
Especially if
do
you own,
business with
yeah.
each other.
Yep. Yep. I have a good friend who just went through that a couple of years ago. Super tough. Now, so she's not part of the business anymore. It's your deal moving forward.
Yeah, Wealth Enhancers is mine. She's always going to be part of the soul. And she has another company called Grow My Team, which is a
Great.
recruitment company for global remote staff.
Recruitment company. Oh,
Yeah.
so she's a competitor to Riderflex. No, I'm just giving her.
Compliment, I reckon.
Okay, so yeah, so let's talk about your current businesses and what you're doing for a living now. Whether it's entrepreneurs organization, if you want to start there, or if you want to talk about wealth enhancers. Let's talk about that. And by the way, both have a huge presence online. I mean, I obviously studied you up and down before the podcast, right? And so you do a great job on social media, great websites, great information. But why don't you talk about them a little bit? Either one you want to start with.
Sure. So Wealth Enhancers is my company, and we like to describe it as a financial happiness company for millennials, and in particular millennial women. And what we do is we guide them to an intentional relationship with money so they become more awakened. And the byproduct of becoming more awakened is you have more freedom, abundance, and happiness.
Okay.
So it's a super cool company. It's like combining positive psychology, behavioral coaching with wealth management and wealth advice.
So I don't. So I can't call you unless I'm a millennial and I have money. No.
So yeah, millennial, and you don't have to have money. That's the whole idea. It's you can have no money. A lot of people actually come to us no money, and it's about how to actually get a better relationship with money and grow. But we also have millionaires as well. Like it's more about getting a more positive relationship with money. And
okay, I'm glad you said that. Okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
It's a really, really great company, and yeah, very, very passionate about it. And for me, it's always, I just see money as something which drives so many people to some interesting decisions, and I'd like them to be more intentional about it.
So your core customer at Wealth Enhancers is, let's call it, or not, I don't know if core customer is the right term, but your target customer, I guess, is a millennial female who might be an entrepreneur or had started a business and recently came into some money and needs advice on what to do with it. Is that
so? Not exactly.
Not exactly. Okay.
We call her Jessica. She's like a 28-year-old female. She's actually more professional. So we do have entrepreneurs as well, but we're actually want to make it available to professionals. They're driven, they're doing really well in their life, and they just want to now know that they're doing the same thing with their relationship with money.
Okay.
And a lot of them actually have no money, or they might have a little bit of savings. Some do, but it's more about like, all right, how do we guide you? And it's about uncovering your purpose, your values, setting intentions towards it, and then having the money thing work part of it. The money thing is like a small percentage of it.
Okay.
Really.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And if they want to get a hold of you, do they just go to Wealth Enhancers and just look at the contact information there? Is that the best thing to do?
Yeah, definitely. And we have some cool things. We have like free sort of financial happiness conversations where they can have a discussion. We're launching online courses. We do retreats. So it's really great. And there's ongoing coaching relationships as well.
I want to talk about I want to talk about those retreats, but I want to just tell you that when I was preparing for the podcast, at the age of 52 for myself, I've made really good money and I've been an executive and I've ran some companies, but I never did the right thing from a personal financial perspective. I mean, I never really managed my own finances properly, whether it's investments or whatever. I mean, I spent years as an executive managing other people's money and the company's money and working really hard to do that. And now when I look back at my life and I tell my sons this, who are grown now, I tell them, I'm like, look, you've got to make sure you're managing the personal stuff too, your personal finances properly. And if you're not careful, you won't spend enough time on it. You'll take your eye off of it because you're entrenched in your career or whatever. And I'm one of those guys. I mean, when I was studying your stuff, I thought, man, I should have called Finn a long time ago.
Well, it's funny. It's funny when I give keynotes, the people who resonated with the most are sort of your demographic, Steve. And you're
Yep.
young, but
I
they
don't
really
know.
do, because they're like, "Oh my God, I get this so much." And I'm like,
Yes.
"Not too late. Like, you've still got a whole adult lifetime ahead of you. Like, you can still apply these things."
I will be calling you, by the way, separately from the podcast because, like, and that, as you get older too, I think, at least for me, I'm very quick to admit what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, right?
Yep.
Like I don't try to fake it out anymore. Like here's the things I kick ass at and here are the things I suck at. And I could definitely use your help on that side. So that's a great business you have there. And that now to meet you in person too, if you live in Colorado or Boulder, you're here, right? Locally.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and
Okay.
that's where I'm president of the Entrepreneurs Organization. So that's a
Yeah.
global organization of it's the largest peer-to-peer group of entrepreneurs. Incredible organization, and it's one of my privileges that I've been. I was elected as president of the
I
chapter,
saw that.
which is really, really cool.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's recent,
Thank you.
2019, right?
Yeah, it is, and
That's great.
it's the best privilege. You're leading leaders like my board, the most incredible entrepreneurs, and I can't believe that they've like volunteering to do this with me. And it's
That's
like
awesome.
I'm not paying them anything, and they just work incredibly. I absolutely love it. We have a lot of fun.
So how does that work? So if you want to be a member there, or you think you should be a member, is it like YPO? Do you pay a
Yeah.
fee, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's basically the exact same organization as YPO. The difference is in EO, you have to be a founder, or in YPO, you can be a family business or a
Uh,
president.
uh,
Nearly identical. I do a lot of work with YPOs as well. Like I do a lot of retreat facilitation for YPOs. I just prefer EO. There's certain things. Some people like certain organizations. EO is just more of my tribe. They're they're awesome.
is it fascinating to watch those personalities and egos when you guys get together? I bet it is, right? Because most entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs that have made it,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a swagger about these guys most of the time.
Yeah.
And by
Yeah.
the
It's brilliant.
way,
It's
I bet it's
fun.
great, right? I bet it's a lot of fun, right?
It
Uh,
is. And what I generally find is uh, everyone has a really great soul behind them. They're all
yeah.
challenging in certain areas. And that's the incredible thing about EO. It just opens everyone up and you just share. And I can meet an EO from all around the world and I'll instantly know that they're an EO because they share a similar set of values. They speak a similar language and they're just vulnerable. They just
Mhm.
share, which is really, really cool.
Speaking of sharing, I had this entrepreneur recently who's now a millionaire. But I asked him, I said, "Hey, what's the darkest moment you ever had?" And he said, "Well, when I cashed in my 401k and put my house up as collateral and invested everything we had, and 2 years in, we hadn't made a dime and we were almost out of money. I was crying in the middle of the night. I'd woke up crying in the middle of the night, and my wife was holding me, and I was apologizing to her for, losing everything and asking her for forgiveness." And he said, as I was doing that, my cat jumped up on the bed and pissed on my leg.
And just when you think things can get worse,
Right.
they always get a little bit more.
And what's so fascinating is when you talk to these guys, these entrepreneurs or people that have ran businesses and have become successful, they all have stories like that, right? They
Yeah,
didn't just start out. They didn't just like, oh, I'm going to start a business and tomorrow it's successful and I'm rich. Like it doesn't go that way. They all struggled, right? Most of them.
yeah, definitely. And if they didn't, they'll eventually struggle with something because
Right.
if you don't have the struggles, you don't learn and grow. So that's why I say like it sounds weird, but I'm so incredibly grateful for that period of my life where there was legal battles, divorce, and everything, because it got me to get to know myself and it got me to confront the things which I was suppressing and blocking. And I still have more work to do, but I'm a lot happier and a lot more grateful for who I am now.
I know that you get paid to do this for a living, to give consulting. So I don't want you to give a bunch of free advice here,
I give everything free.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. All
Yeah.
right. So for early entrepreneurs that you meet that are asking you for advice, what are some key things that you would say to listeners for this podcast that are just starting or thinking about getting started? What's some key advice you would give them?
Yeah, invest in yourself, like really get clear about who you are. So one of the most powerful things you can have from day one would be some form of coach, psychologist, there's something working with you just to keep you in check and to keep allowing you to process feelings and emotions as they come up. Because what we're very good as entrepreneurs is like, I don't have time to do that. I'll suppress it. And eventually it will come back up, and it may come back up at the worst time and destroy your business. And like I experienced that. So really investing in yourself, getting clear about what's important to you, and almost putting constraints on and boundaries. So now I'm being very clear. It's like, this is what I love doing, and this is where I'm going to spend my time. Anything else, I'm not going to do that. And if you don't get clear about that, you'll just end up doing everything, and people will hijack your space and time. So that'd be another one. And getting pretty clear on the numbers. It really does come down to numbers. And if we're not clear on it, we'll just make bad decisions and get taken advantage of. And then probably finally, be willing to just give up any concept of what you thought was right. So if you look at most successful companies, it wasn't there. I put on this event last week with EO. We had John Mullins from the London Business School, and he's the author of Customer Funded Business Model. He's brilliant. We had this 2-day workshop, and he would do all these case studies on successful businesses. And it was never the plan A, which was successful. It wasn't even the plan B. It was like the plan C and plan D. Right. And in order to get to that, you need to be willing to give up your identity, because often we were the ones who created the plan A. Yes. And we need to be willing to up and go, all right, that was wrong. That's okay. And move forward. I struggle with that. It's challenging in that regard.
Do you have employees at either one at Wealth Enhancers at all, or just yourself?
Yeah. No, all their companies employees. Like, it's not a consulting company. It's more of a like a membership organization. And I do like one-off consulting for like retreats and everything in America. Like, I run entrepreneurial retreats and I speak. So that's the only one-off thing I do.
When you go on, I want to come back to the retreats for a second before I forget. Yeah. But on the employees, what mistakes do you see early young CEOs make? They just got into the C-level for the first time. What are some of the most common missteps you see from folks like that?
Unfortunately, not letting people go early enough. That's probably a huge challenge. Realizing that it is all about people, like the quality of people. You get the right people. Good people will make shit processes look good. Like, they really, really will. So this is something which I'm only just learning. Like, the quality of your people will determine how successful you are. And holding people accountable, and realizing that some people who are great may not be able to get you to the next chapter. And that's okay. So they're probably the big things about people. Other areas, just believing that there's a magic bullet as well. Like, often like a silver bullet, like just thinking, if I just get this person, it's going to be great. It's often not.
Right. Yeah. There's usually not a single bullet, right? Most of the time. So these retreats that you do now, that's part of Wealth Enhancers? Is that the same business?
So I have some are part of Wealth Enhancers, but then there's another one, I call it Being Intentional. And that's for the YPOs and the EOers as well. It's more doing these retreats, and we call them intentional living retreats. So I really get people to focus on living an intentional life, and that's getting connected to themselves, and then understanding what's really important to them, and creating a pathway moving forward, an intentional path. And we do a lot of breath work, we do a lot of visualization, manifestation, and just vulnerability communication as well.
What's the biggest challenge when you get all these people out in the, on one of these retreats? What's the early challenge? Getting them to just relax for a second, let their guard down, or what?
Yeah. Getting them out of their head. So getting them out of their left side thinking brain into their right side feeling body. That's the biggest challenge, because we believe that this has helped us so much, and it has. It's got us to certain places, but it actually ends up being the biggest constraint for our next level of growth. It holds us back, because we're always making decisions basically thinking here and with our ego rather than our heart and our and getting connected to our body. So that's why I use breath work and meditation and different techniques to get them connected to their body.
It's got to be very rewarding for you, like weeks later when somebody calls you and says, "Hey man, thank you. Like that retreat really made a difference in my life." I mean, that's got to mean more than the money, right? I mean, that's got to be huge.
So much better. For me, money's just, it's going to be there. Like you add value, money comes. Like that's the key thing. So like I gave a keynote to a group of entrepreneurs the other night in Reno, and just getting a couple of emails the next day about the impact, and it's made them realize, wow, I'm not living an intentional life. And a lot of these decisions that I'm making aren't important to me. It's just because of something which happened to me when I was younger, and I've been on this pattern ever since. That lights me up, and it just brings so much joy for me.
What do you enjoy the most? Do you enjoy the speaking engagements or the one-on-one sit downs with somebody to help them manage their finances? Like what's...
So I don't enjoy the one-on-one finances myself anymore. Like I haven't done that for quite a while. What I love, I still love it, but it's not as much as the other areas. I love keynote speaking, but you get me in a room where I'm guiding people on breath work, and that's where I'm most alive. It's just because it gets them into a place that they didn't know was possible. And then because of that, we can have really, really deep conversations afterwards, which is incredibly powerful. But I love all moments of life. I love this right now. Like I play so many different roles, and I try to just drop in the moment with a few conscious breaths, like 3 conscious breaths, the most powerful things you do. And I drop in and go, okay, what role am I playing now? How do I show up for this and just be present for it?
Did you have these people skills early on, like back in even, middle school? Like, did you know that you were going to lead people for a living?
I didn't know I was going to lead people for a living. However, I always have had some level of people skills, and there was definitely, like, I was a young, little charismatic, happy baby, but then I felt like I had to play different roles, and it was these people skills that it was almost a survival mechanism for me. Like if I didn't know how to get my friends to invite me over to their place so I could be in their place rather than being in my home, then that was almost like a survival thing for me. So you end up getting good at it.
As I've listened to you talk about, entrepreneurs organization or, wealth enhancers, or even your speaking engagements. How about the people listening to this podcast that are like, yeah, that's great. I wish I could be part of that. I don't have the money to join EO, or I don't have the money to go to pay for a retreat. I'd love to do it, but I can't right now. What do they do in the meantime? What do you recommend for those listeners in the meantime?
So I'm going to be really candid. First is they need to change their mindset, because so often we go, I don't have money to do this. And it's like, well, you probably have some money to do other things. Like there's choices, right? Like where are you going to invest? Like where are you going to get the greatest return? And then the incredible thing about where life is right now, like most things are free. Like all the stuff which I give in Wealth Enhancers, like we also write about it all the time. Like all our blogs and all our content,
right?
Like we're giving it away the whole time. Our podcast.
Yep.
Like you can be like, you can sit in Stanford effectively by just listening to a podcast. Like they record the same thing and share it.
Yep.
So I would say just take a look at yourself and see if you can change that mindset and go, how do we actually take some steps moving forward? Because there's only you're going to be able to do it. Like no one else is going to be able to save you or guide you through it. You need to take responsibility.
I love, and you said that early on, take responsibility for your own financial situation. Everybody that I talk to that wants to start a business, they all give me the same song and dance, right? They're all like, well, I only have so much money in savings, and I got a mortgage, and I got this, and I got that, and I don't have the money. Like I need somebody to give me money to start the business. So I always get that speech.
Yep.
And I'm not nearly as good as answering that as you probably are. When you're talking to somebody like that, do similar speech as to what you just said? What do you tell them? Hey, you got to make choices. Stop. Yeah. What do you tell them? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would. I'd empathize with them. I'm not always hard on them. I do, like, I just explore and I uncover and I find out what's blocking them. There's some form of suppressed emotion, and I get them to go into their body and breathe, and there'll be something, one of their chakras will be blocked, and I'm like, okay, well, this makes sense. Now let's see if we can let this go. And how can we envision this working, and how could we start making steps that doesn't seem so overwhelming? Because a lot of the time people think it's a binary choice. It's like, I have to give up my job to start a business. And it's like, no, you don't. Especially these days, like, you can start a business today. Just add value. It doesn't have to be this huge $1 billion business. Just find a way to add value. If you realize that you are in a position to always add value to someone, you'll never go needing, because that's the law of reciprocity. Like, you're always going to be provided for. You just give and it will come back to you. The challenge is a lot of people don't want to give, and they want now. They want to take.
I love it. Yeah, I did a podcast on that topic, or an episode on that topic. It's like, are you a taker or a giver? Like, are you just taking? I think I was challenging the listeners to say, why don't you just measure yourself as you move through the day, keep a little journal as to how many times you're taking versus giving. It's amazing. It's amazing what you'll notice at the end of the day or the week if you just really track it.
Definitely. One of our values at Wealth Enhancers is conscious connection, and we have like a description about it. And part of it is be aware of your vibrational frequency, and we are uplifters rather than detractors. So this is something you can give, is like, do you uplift someone when they're around you? If you do that, you'll notice things just start happening. Just always be the uplifter rather than the downer for someone.
I couldn't agree more. By the way, as I was watching all of your YouTube videos and everything and studying you last night and this morning, that's how I felt. I felt uplifted. It was in a good mood. I did my exercises this morning, and I had some coffee, and my wife's like, man, you're in a good mood today. I was like, well, I just watched all of Finn's stuff, so I'm feeling pretty good right now.
Thank you, Steve. And that's a good frame, like a point of reference to go, are you surrounding yourself with the right people? If you're not getting uplifted, maybe these people aren't the right people. It doesn't even matter if they're family members or anything. Like, you've got to be conscious with who you're around, because that will ultimately determine your success.
Totally agree. You've had such a great career already, and you're still a young man. But at this stage, if you reflect back on your life now, is there anything you would tell your 21-year-old self to do differently if you could go back in time and interview that kid? Is there anything you'd say, hey, make sure you do this because I didn't do it and you should?
Breathe would be the simplest thing. Okay. And really the breathing's out, getting connected to your emotions and the suppressed feelings, because it doesn't matter how much you succeed in traditional terms, success, eventually you'll have to deal with them, and it'd be a lot easier to deal with them at a young age.
That's good. So right now, when Finn wakes up every day, what's his core purpose in life?
Yeah, I love this one. So my core purpose is to be intentional and live in the now, so that I and others become more awakened. Ooh. So it's this concept of just being present, showing up, and being intentional about my thoughts, my words, and my actions. And by doing that, I will become more awakened. And if I become more awakened, then others around me become more awakened. And that's really what we're all here to do.
I love it. All right. So to reach Finn, wealthenhancers.com, right? Probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And then I'm on LinkedIn and everything. I'm just Finn Kelly everywhere.
You're everywhere, man. You are everywhere. All right. Well, you know what? Hey, thanks so much for being on the Riderflex podcast. I appreciate it. And congrats on everything you've done in your career. I look forward to building a personal relationship with you too now, because I'd like to go on one of those retreats.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
As a guy that interviews people for a living, right, and dissects people, like I would just love to be there and, watch and kind of dissect what's going on. So eventually I'd like to get there. So I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Finn. Okay. Bye-bye.
The Riderflex Nation podcast can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on our podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address
info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.